Have you heard the phrase, debt is the root of all evils? Never get into debt. Debt is slavery. And that is true to a certain extent, because when you're drowning in debt, your life is over. While you're trying to pay your debts are not waiting for you. They're growing day by day, since no one lends money for free. There is always an interest. Despite all of this, the United States has embraced debt. Total US consumer debt is almost $15 trillion, which brings the average household debt to over $5,300. The US GDP is a little over $21 trillion, which means the entire economy consists out of debt. But I have some good news for you. That isn't always bad. That is unpopular opinion because most of the debt we have is bad debt. You probably have some credit card debts, a car loan, and maybe a student debt, and you're thinking, it will take me decades to pay off all of these debts. How on earth can debt be something good? In order to understand how debt can be something positive, let's take a look at how people with deep pockets still use debt to make even more money. It might sound a bit confusing because why would anyone with a lot of money use debt in the first place? That is supposed to be used by people who do not have money. But that's not how capitalism works. Debt is a powerful tool if you know how to use it. And in this video, you will find out how rich people use debt to make even more money. So give this video a thumbs up and let's get right into it. Number 1. Most of the trade is based on debt. It might sound a bit controversial because borrowing money to start a business is a horrible idea, and personally, I would never do that. But there are businesses, especially traditional businesses, where using debt is your best option. Let's say you want to sell pens. It's a very common product and there's pretty much always a demand for it. Ideally, you would fly to China, find a factory that produces that kind of pen with good quality and the right price. You would purchase a container of pens, ship them to the US, and distribute them to your clients. But today, that's mostly done online through websites like Alibaba, unless it's a more complicated product where you have to fly to that factory. But here is the catch. You don't really have to pay for the products to have the product first. Let me explain how. In the past 50 years, China has become the factory of the world, producing literally everything. Thousands of factories work non-stop to produce everything that the world needs. And in order to make it easier to sell, most of these factories would gladly loan you their products in return that you would pay them sometime in the future. Of course, they would not lend to strangers, so you will have to build some kind of trust with them first. But that's how business has been running for the past 50 years. Once the client would sell the product in the US or any other part of the world, he would pay the factory and borrow more products. You're basically telling the factory, you know how to produce it, so let me help you sell it. If I can sell it for anything above this price, that's going to be my profit. What makes this strategy great is that you're not tying up your own money in this transaction. That's why selling is one of the greatest skills you can ever master. Number 2. Refinancing. Real estate debt is the best kind of debt because it's filled with loopholes. If you don't have a mortgage, then you're paying extra taxes. Rich people always have multiple mortgages to be able to get all of those deductions. Remember, every dollar that you're supposed to pay in taxes, but instead you save, is an extra dollar earned. So that's another way rich people get richer. But let me give you a more practical way. This is how basically rich people get rich in real estate. Let's say you saved $200,000. That's a lot of money, but if we're going to be honest, that's peanuts. You can't even buy a house. Of course, you can't get a mortgage up to $800,000 since you have to make a 20% down payment, but here is the secret. Let's say you find a property that costs $500,000. It's in a bad condition and needs some or maybe a lot of renovation. You head to a bank and get a mortgage by making a 20% down payment. Let's say you're going to spend around 10% of the total cost of the house to renovate it, or around $50,000. You head to your bank again, but this time to refinance your mortgage. When you got your first mortgage, the value of that property was just $500,000 because it was in such a bad condition that no one wanted to live there. But since you have renovated it, now there are people who want to rent it out. So the market value of that property, let's say, rises to $700,000. Like the first time, let's say you are going to get an 80% mortgage, but 80% out of $700,000 is $560,000. $400,000 out of that money is going to go to your first bank that gave you the first mortgage. And let's deduct another $50,000 that you spent on renovation, and you're going to be left with an extra profit of $110,000. You made $110,000 using debt, and you're left with a property that you can rent out to build equity and generate passive income. The maximum that you can lose is the amount you invested in, but not in the case of shorting. If the price keeps rising, your losses keep rising. Theoretically, you can make unlimited losses since theoretically the stock price can rise indefinitely. But if you have 100 analysts working for you, you can make a fortune using this strategy. Number 4. Forex. We have already discussed this in our Forex video, which link I will leave in the comment section, but here is how it works in short. Forex is a market where currencies are traded. It makes international trade possible. You can use US dollar in China. You have to buy Chinese yen to pay your employees, for example, in China. So there is a market where anyone or any company can come in and purchase foreign currencies. And based on different factors, these currencies fluctuate. For example, the Fed rises interest rates. That will limit the supply of dollar in the market and make US dollar stronger against other currencies, or vice versa. So if you can predict which currencies will rise or fall, you can make a lot of money in this market. But what makes these markets so different from the rest is that for every dollar you use to trade in Forex, you can borrow an additional $100. That means if you trade using your $1,000, you can hold a position worth $100,000. If you end up making a small profit like 1%, it will be huge. Number 5. Credit score. As you can see, debt is a powerful tool. Every successful business, company, or entrepreneur uses debt in various ways, especially if you have a proven business model. Borrowing money to finance purchase orders is practiced pretty much by every business. So stop thinking in terms all debt is bad. Of course, debt with a high interest rate such as credit card debt is horrible. But in order to get a lower interest rate, you have to minimize the risks of loaning you money. How do you do that? You build a track record of being a reliable borrower. There are billions if not trillions of dollars in the banks waiting for someone to borrow them. And even if there isn't any money, banks can create money out of thin air, and we have explained that.
I'm dressing my comfortable pants in a hurry as I have a meeting about to start. I quickly jump into my chair, I look at the camera to check if I look okay, and then I click join. That's two of the perks of working at home. We can wear comfortable clothes and we can jump into meetings in seconds. I work in a tech company, and in my field it is very common to have a lot of meetings. And because we spend so much time in meetings, we then accumulate lots of things to do. After that meeting, I had another meeting, and then another meeting. Oh, and after lunch, one more meeting. By the end of the day, I had so many things to tackle. I felt I hadn't done anything all day long. So I decided to create a list with everything I had to do to make sure nothing would be forgotten, and hopefully to motivate me to work harder. A few weeks have passed, and the list only got bigger and bigger. The easier things were being tackled, but I noticed that the bigger and complex tasks ended up being postponed. And these tasks were the ones that made a better impact. But even when I started one, it got dragged day after day, sometimes week after week. I hated this feeling of dragging tasks all the time. It looked like I wasn't doing anything impactful. I started to question my performance in the company and if I was doing my job right. I always wondered, How could I be more productive? One morning I was in bed feeling tired and I didn't want to get up. I was demotivated. I did my usually morning workout and went for a shower. While in the shower, I mentally went through my day and thought about it. So many things, so little impact, again. I stopped for a moment. My eyes were closed and the water was flowing into my head. And the following question came to my mind. If I could do only one thing today, what would bring the biggest impact? I know what will, that hard task that I seem to never have energy to pick up. Let's do it then. I will be focusing on that and only that today, I decided. My team needed a coaching session to help solve one of our main pains, but it required a lot of learning and preparation from my side, so it was delayed again and again. Not today. This is my goal for today. I may not finish it, but I will make progress on it. When I realized what I had just discovered, I felt excitement for the first time in many months. I was smiling and I quickly got out of the shower to work. I rejected a meeting that was not that relevant and I ignored the usual and not so important tasks that came up. I was focused on my goal. A few days later, when we did the session, it was a success. I had finally felt I was doing my job and creating an impact. All I needed was to set priorities and to focus on what is important. This is the power of the daily highlight. Since that day, almost every morning when I'm in the shower, I think, what is the most important thing I have to do that day? Even if I can't complete it, I can start. The daily highlight requires that you know in your head what is the most important thing you can do. If you don't know, it might help to list everything you have to work on and then prioritize what you think will bring the most impact. After that, just focus on the first thing of your list on that day. If you finish it, of course you should jump into the next one. But the daily highlight is designed to bring value to our busy days, when we also have to attend meetings and do other less important but needed tasks. So, focusing only on one thing will allow you to create value with minimum effort. In my case, as I have two teams, some days I like to think on one goal for each team if the goals are not that big, but never more than that. This method is extremely useful because we will be working on the most important things, which will result in achieving more with less time and energy. For me, that's the definition of productivity, and so it makes this my favorite productivity technique. Another great technique is the Pomodoro technique. If you are interested, you could also watch it next. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.